Good evening, it's time for the news on Times Television and you're with me, Ronald Mpaso. First, the headlines. State House insists funding for the Affordable Input Program is not a problem. A state witness in the 293 million kwacha suspected fraud case at the Malawi Embassy in Ethiopia testifies to facing threats during an audit in Addis Ababa. And 28 people have been arrested for illegally sawing timber in Mulanje Mountain Forest Reserve. We have these and other stories. Stay with us. In our first item, State House says funding for the Affordable Input Program is not a problem amid growing questions on how the government will continue the initiative. This comes as President Lazarus Chakwera recently said no one will be removed from last year's list of beneficiaries, departing from what has initially been communicated. Speaking when he addressed journalists during his fortnightly briefing at Sanjika Palace in Blantyre, State House Director of Communications Sean Kampondeni had this to say.
In terms of funding for the same, the President is, I think you recall that in my earlier statement, an update about the President's ministerial engagements this coming week includes discussions he's having with folks from the Treasury, including the Minister of Finance, in order precisely to resolve those sort of issues. But the President is fully committed to delivering on his promise for the Malawian people to have food security. And so when it comes to matters of public service and food security, the President is not concerned about not being able to find funding for the same. In this country, we find funding for whatever we think is important. And so the Malawian people can be assured that they have a president who, when he says something, it means he has a plan in place of not only resourcing the same, but also delivering the same.
Meanwhile, President Lazarus Chakwera will not go to New York next month to attend this year's United Nations General Assembly. Kampondeni, who is also the President's executive assistant, made the revelation today during the fortnightly State House press briefing held in Blantyre. Kampondeni said President Chakwera will instead attend the meeting virtually, as he also has a number of critical issues to attend to here at home. Chakwera was scheduled to leave for New York on September 18. The third state witness in the 293 million kwacha suspected fraud case at the Malawi Embassy in Ethiopia, exposed in 2016, told the court in Lilongwe today that they faced threats and intimidation as they did the audit in Addis Ababa. This was allegedly at the hands of some people from the Foreign Affairs Department. The case involves the former Deputy Ambassador to Ethiopia, Doreen Kapanga, and Fletcher Chowe, a former financial officer at the embassy. Wezi Gausi has a report.
According to the witness, Spencer Mlekano, who was working as an internal auditor at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the time of the incident, testified that he was sent to Addis Ababa to do an internal audit. The witness says during the audit process they were receiving threat calls from Foreign Affairs Department that they should stop auditing the embassy, as they would deal with them or else their families. He says his assistant was afraid and was on the verge of quitting the audit. In an interview after the hearing, Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, Stephen Kayuni, says the state was satisfied with the progress of the case.
So he's still testifying. It's been adjourned today so that some documents can be put in order, and then he proceeds with his testimony.
On his part, one of the defense lawyers, Kumbo Soko, expressed hope that the case is progressing well, but they had to look into some of the documents before the court proceed on hearing.
He hasn't concluded because there is an issue of documents. Some of the documents that he was referring to are not legible, couldn't see anything. So we have to sit down with the state so that they give us more clear documents.
The state is expected to parade 6 witnesses, and one of whom is based in Ethiopia.
Only 4 out of the country's 16 newly appointed ambassadors and high commissioner designates have received their letters of confirmation from their host countries. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has expressed optimism that more confirmations will be received within a few weeks to come. We have this report from Matthews Kasanda.
Secretary for Foreign Affairs Lucky Squese disclosed this in Lilongwe on Tuesday during an orientation for the ambassadors to enlighten them on rules of engagement. Squese says if it were in Malawi's control, all the ambassadors and high commissioners could have gone to host countries by end September this year. Squese says by Friday last week, Malawi had received confirmations from Britain, African Union, Mozambique, and South Africa. The Secretary for Foreign Affairs has also advised the ambassadors to make sure that they honor the channels of communication to avoid confusion.
The challenge that we normally do have when people pick up their positions, regardless from who identify them, and in this particular the president and whatever networks they have, if there isn't a coordinated way of engaging and communicating, you bring in a lot of confusion. So my advice indeed was that as they begin to pick their posts, they should know where to get certain technical advice or political advice. In this case, when I'm talking political advice, it comes from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs headquarters.
Joseph Mpinganjira, who will be heading for Germany, hopes he will meet the expectations of the country.
Definitely, when we are appointed and confirmed as ambassadors or some of us high commissioners, their expectations, and we'll try to do our best to meet those expectations. And we are hoping that with this conference or orientation we're having, the orientation will prepare us for the job that we have to do.
The ambassador's orientation was under the theme Development Diplomacy, a catalyst for sustainable development.
28 people have been arrested for illegally sawing timber in Mulanje Mountain Forest Reserve in a joint operation between the Malawi Defense Force and Forest Scouts. According to the Department of Forestry, the arrested have been handed over to police for the law to take its course. Thomas Kachere has a report.
Director of Forest Eric Mbingwani confirmed the development, adding the suspects have been handed over to the police for the law to take its course on the charges that would be leveled against them. He said during a joint operation between MDF and Forest Scouts, 3 of their scouts and 2 villagers were wounded. He said the villagers started pelting stones at them, resulting in some people getting injuries. Meanwhile, Mulanje police spokesperson Gresham Gwira said he could not comment more on the issue since the operation was done by MDF and Forest Department. The arrests have come at a time when government and other stakeholders continue to face resistance in the fight against deforestation in government-protected forests, which is resulting in environmental degradation and climate change.
Forestry officials in the northern region have said lack of adequate forestry officers is leading to high deforestation in the country's forest reserves. The region's Forest Regulation and Quality Control Law Enforcement Officer, Gloria Mlauzi, says the situation has been aggravated by the government's failure to replace retired officers and those who died. Josephine Chipofia has compiled this report, read by Feston Malegezo.
Mlauzi made the remarks at a hiking activity organized by Moyale Barracks aimed at raising awareness on the conservation of Kaningina Forest. Mlauzi added that from January this year to date, the Forestry Department in the northern region has apprehended about 450 people for smuggling forest products, and their cases were brought to court and were charged accordingly.
We are very, very much insufficient. Only that this time, people that have died or retired, they are not replaced. So we are insufficient. we need the government to recruit more people so that at least the staff can be beefed so that we should be managing the forest reserves as it was in the past.
Meanwhile, Moyale Barracks commanding officer Lieutenant Tokzani Chazema said Kaningina Forest is very important to the people of Mzuzu as it is a catchment area for Nyangwa Dam and is also a training area for the soldiers.
Particularly Kaningina is a catchment area for Mzuzu Dam. So it's a catchment area that provides water to Mzuzu Dam, and I can't overemphasize the importance of water. We usually use water each and every day, and Kaningina as well forest is the training area for the soldiers. So if we conserve Kaningina forest, it means at long term we'll have a better trained soldiers.
The Moyale Barracks soldiers were joined by Temwa Sustainable Community Development, Hill Climbing Club, forest officials and Malawi Police Service in the Kaningina mountain hiking as one way of raising awareness on the importance of conserving forest reserves.
The Malawi Electoral Commission has given stakeholders until October 20 this year to provide their input on the boundary review exercise that the Commission is set to undertake in preparation for tripartite elections in September 2025. The Commission is currently undertaking sensitization meetings on the review of constituency and ward boundaries. Audrey Palamula has a report.
In a statement released today, Acting Chief Elections Officer Harris Potani says the Commission has planned to conduct a comprehensive review of boundaries of all constituencies and wards to ensure that they are in compliance with the provisions of the Section 76 of the Constitution. According to the law, the reviewing process of the boundaries is supposed to be done every 5 years, but the Commission last did the exercise in 1998. Potani says civil society organizations, political parties, faith groups and interested parties, among others, should provide their views to be considered during the exercise. Sangwani Mwafriwa is the Director of Media and Public Relations at the Commission.
The laws have given the Commission the independence in its political party. As an operational strategy, the Commission would always want to take input from stakeholders. So this is a very critical exercise. We work for the public and would want the public to take part in whatever is happening within the Commission. That's why we are also calling for submissions from them.
The boundary review exercise is expected to cost the Commission 1.3 billion kwacha. During a sensitization meeting in Mzuzu recently, MEC Chairperson Judge Chifundo Kajali said the exercise will not go below 193 constituencies.
You're watching the news on Times Television, TTV. We'll be back shortly after this break.
Build big, build quality. If you're thinking of having building...
Mona Malawi anzanga. Nkhondo yogonjetsa COVID-19 ndiye wina aliyense. Tili limodzi. Ine ndinasankha kulandira katemera wa COVID-19 atangoyamba kuperekedwa. Chifukwa monga na mwino, moyo wanga, umoyo wa odwala amene ndimawasamalira, abale anga, ndi dera langa, ndi zinthu zomwe ndimazika pa mtima panga kwambiri. Katemera wa COVID-19 anditeteza ine ndi ena omwe analandira katemerayo ku chiopsezo choti tingadwale mwakayakaya, kugonekedwa mchipatala, kapena kutaya moyo wathu chifukwa cha COVID-19. Kulandira katemerayo kutithandiza kuthana ndi mliri wa COVID-19 limodzi.
Ziwani zambiri za katemerayo ndi kupanga chisankho cha nzeru. Sankhani katemera, tetezani tsogolo.
Welcome back. The Malawi Council for the Handicapped says lack of resources is a leading cause for child disabilities which could otherwise be avoided. According to the Council, most child disabilities are easily corrected in children through devices that are expensive to be accessed by most people in rural areas. Patience Lunda has details in this report.
These disability arms include underarm and forearm crutches that help one easily walk with stability. A survey conducted in 2008 revealed that 69% of people with various forms of disabilities require disability devices, but only 5% are able to access them. In an interview, Makoha, Community Rehabilitation Officer from Nkarabe District, Matatio Chirambo, said the tendency of hiding children with disabilities by their parents in rural areas is further fueling the problem. Chirambo said hiding children with disabilities not only deprives them of the chance to be corrected, but also the right to education and association.
When we are doing physiotherapy with these children, at one point or the other, they're supposed to receive devices which they assist in the correction of the disability. So for us to provide these devices is a challenge because these devices are costly.
The situation has prompted the Livingstonia Synod AIDS Program, RISAP, Ripple Africa and Makoha to work together to provide devices for children with disabilities in Nkarabe District. RISAP is further supporting communities to build community-based care child centers, CBCCs, with disability-friendly structures. RISAP Executive Director Jonathan Vumu said the organization is conducting sensitization in rural areas on the importance of taking children with disabilities to hospitals and to early childhood development centers.
We are supporting transitioning programs where those that have graduated from community-based childcare centers can start Standard 1 and Standard 2. And some of the children that we're supporting are disabled, and so they're finding it hard to come to school. And so we have identified them in the community, and we have promoted linkages with the Malawi Council for the Handicapped.
On her part, Mere Mwenda, a parent of a child with disability, was optimistic that her child would be corrected through the help of the device she has received. Her child has challenges in walking. There are about 300 children with disabilities in Nkarabe District.
United Nations Assistant Secretary General and Coordinator for Scaling Up Nutrition SUN movement, Greta Verberg, is set to visit Malawi from tomorrow to Friday this week. Verberg will be participating in the national launch of the SUN Strategy 3 by President Lazarus Chakwera on 2 September at Bingu International Convention Center in Lilongwe. Kumbo Kaliwo has compiled this report, which is being read by Matthews Kasanda.
Speaking during a press briefing on Monday, Minister of Health Kumbizeka Ndodo Chibonda said the Scaling Up Nutrition movement is a renewed effort by the government of Malawi to eliminate all forms of malnutrition.
Nutrition is not just about health. It has an impact on education. It has an impact on issues to do with gender and all other issues as well. It's a multi-sectoral thing. So that is why we are calling on everybody else, to take part in this scaling up. And this is what we are going to launch, or our president is going to launch.
UNICEF representative Tedra Dante says Malawi will be the first African country to eliminate vitamin A deficiency. Dante says though Malawi is making a good progress, there's still more to be done. He says Malawi needs solid nutrition policies, pro-nutrition legislation, and appropriate budget allocations for nutrition programs. Malawi joined the SUN movement in 2011 and has managed to reduce chronic malnutrition from 47% to 37%.
That's Matthews Kasanda reading that report compiled by Kumbo Kaliwo. The Ministry of Youth and Sports says Bingu National Stadium requires at least 50 million kwacha for urgent maintenance works so that it gets approval from Confederation of African Football to host international matches. CAF banned the facility from hosting international matches due to its poor condition. Mavuto Kambue has a report.
The stadium requires 15 million kwacha for purchase of chairs for media room, dressing rooms and other rooms. In addition, 3.8 million kwacha is needed for internet connection and 3.5 million kwacha for purchase of sound system. Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Oliver Kumbambe, said discussions with Treasury are underway to provide additional funds for the maintenance of the facility.
We are all convinced that a lot of work has been done to meet the standard that FIFA have put for all stadiums to have before they can host any international games.
Chairperson for Parliamentary Committee on Social and Community Affairs, Savero Kafafa, appealed to the corporate world to support government.
We want to see Flames playing here come October. So we want to make an appeal to the general public, especially our banks and other stakeholders. If we get the 50 million, then I am so optimistic that we will qualify, and the next games come October, Flames will play in Malawi.
The facility requires an estimated 30 million kwacha per month for operations, but it gets about 3 million kwacha per month from government. Football Association of Malawi General Secretary Alfred Gunda is confident that the facility will pass CAF test next month.
The required investment for this infrastructure to thrive into what it's supposed to showcase to Malawi and indeed to the world comes at a cost.
The Flames will host Mozambique at Orlando Stadium in the World Cup qualifiers in South Africa after CAF banned Bingu National Stadium from hosting international matches due to its condition.
To international news now. That's Zambia's new president, Hakainde Hichilema, has replaced the country's top military commanders and the head of police. And he has also signaled a focus on the security forces being more accountable to citizens. The president late on Sunday announced new commanders of the Zambian army, and this is the Air Force and National Service and their deputies, as well as the new Inspector General of Police. All regional police commissioners have been relieved of their duties, but their replacements have not yet been named. And that's the end of the bulletin for now, but before we go, the headlines again. State House insists funding for the Affordable Input Program is not a problem. A state witness in the 293 million kwacha suspected fraud case at the Malawi embassy in Ethiopia testifies to facing threats during an audit in Addis Ababa. And 28 people have been arrested for illegally sawing timber in Mulanje Mountain Forest Reserve. Remember, you can get more on these and other stories by visiting our website www.times.mw, liking our Facebook page Times360 Malawi, and following us on Twitter at Times360 Malawi. Remember to wash your hands regularly, observe social and physical distance, and mask up. Stay safe, enjoy the night. You've been with me, Ronald Mpaso.